Hi there, I'm Thelma and welcome back to the Calyx Growing Things Garden. This is the third in our three-part beginner backyard gardening series, and in this video we will provide you with some important tips on how to keep your plants healthy and growing well. So please keep watching. In the first two videos in the series, we showed you how to plant crops in beds and in containers. It's now time to consider how to keep your crops growing healthy and well. If you haven't seen the first two videos, we encourage you to do so because this is a continuation from what we presented in those videos. In this video, we will be providing you with important tips on how to water, fertilize, and to keep away those pesky pests and diseases. We will start with perhaps what is the easiest of those, but most important, how to water your crops properly. The rule to follow in watering is to water only when necessary. Do not overwater. Most plants start to look dull, droop slightly, or otherwise lose their healthy look when they need water. See this cabbage? Some wilting during the heat of the day is normal. You can ignore this if you watered that morning or the day before. If the plant still doesn't perk up in the late afternoon, scratch the top 2 or so inches of the soil, and if it is dry, you'll need to apply water. Here are some tips to follow when you water. Avoid watering after 9 a.m. Watering when the sun is hot results in too much water being lost through evaporation. Early morning or late afternoon watering is better. Direct the water to the roots of plants. Avoid wetting the leaves or you may end up with problems with mildews, blights, and other diseases. Don't use water pressure at full blast. This causes water to run off quickly rather than soaking in. So, turn down the pressure. Try to soak the soil all the way through. This way, you will water less often. If possible, use drip hoses in your beds. These use less water than watering can or sprinklers. Cover the surface of beds and containers with mulch. This way you don't have to water so often, plus it keeps the soil cool. Use materials such as grass clippings, dry leaves, wood chips, old newspapers, whatever is available. Let's turn our attention to plant nutrition, feeding your crop. Now, we all know that plants, like humans, require certain essential nutrients, most of which they get from the soil. If you feed your soil, then the plants are likely to be able to get most of the nutrients they need from the soil. In our case here, we feed the soil with organic matter. As the saying goes, healthy soil, healthy plants. And in the Calyx garden, we rely heavily on compost. That's because we have a lot of compostable material here, as we've shown in a previous video. If you've prepared your bed well with a good amount of compost or manure, then the job of feeding the plant later as it grows is much easier. For example, you should not have to add additional fertilizers for beans and fast-growing leafy vegetables such as lettuce, pak choy, and callaloo. Crops that take longer to mature and that bear fruit such as peppers and tomatoes will need 2 or 3 applications of fertilizer between planting and reaping. What is a suitable fertilizer schedule for plants growing in beds and in pots? Well, we'd like to show you what we use here in the garden and what we would recommend that you use also. Our fertilizer program starts with compost tea. Compost tea is composted materials dissolved in water to make a liquid organic fertilizer. To make compost tea, mix 1 part of finished compost with 5 parts of water. Stir well and leave for 3 to 5 days, stirring at least twice daily. But it's much better to let the crop tell you if it needs fertilizer. If it is looking green and healthy, such as this sweet pepper, save the fertilizer. However, if it is growing slowly or is pale green in color, like this okra, it is asking for additional nutrients. As I've said before, you should be able to produce a healthy crop using organic fertilizers such as compost tea, seaweed extract, or fish emulsion. And many farm stores sell these products so you don't have to brew them yourself. Just follow the recommendations on the product's label. If you are using conventional chemical fertilizers, there are many NPK formulations that are suitable for vegetables. For example, 14-28-14 and 7-14-14. But ask your farm store for advice on what is best for your area. Let's now look at lowering the incidence of pest and disease damage. Now, it would be nice if most of the time when we plant a crop that it grows well. And what we need to do is make sure we take the right steps to minimize the population of pest and disease in our garden. The truth is, you can't get away completely from plant pests and diseases. Here are some of the pests and diseases that you are likely to encounter in your garden. Cutworms, snails and slugs, and armyworms cause physical damage by cutting and chewing leaves and stems. Leaf miner, mealybugs, thrips, and aphids puncture plant tissues and suck the sap. They can significantly reduce the growth of your crops. Troublesome diseases include mildews and blights, and sometimes leaf spots, which usually thrive under cool, wet conditions. They can appear suddenly and result in fairly rapid decline and even death of susceptible plants, such as cucumbers, melons, Irish potato, and tomato. The best way to reduce pest and disease problems is to keep your plants growing healthy and free of stress. Half your job is done when you follow the recommended watering and fertilizer regimes. Here are some other practices that will help you to reduce your problems with pests and diseases. Do not overcrowd beds. Air has to circulate to maintain low humidity levels around the plants. Also, routinely remove damaged and diseased leaves. And since weeds provide a home for pests and diseases, keep the area in and around your food garden free of weeds and waste. Despite your best efforts, there may be times when you have to spray. And in that case, because you're growing your food crops right on your doorsteps for your family, we strongly recommend that you select safe organic products once they're available in your area. In our garden, we have come to rely on these 3 organic products. The neem and the BT have given us very good control of aphids, whiteflies, but because we have a high humid area here, we do have problems with things like mildews and late blights. There are 2 crops that we like to grow here in the garden that are very susceptible to mildews and blights, and these are cucumbers and tomatoes. So what we have to do is to schedule the planting of those crops to avoid as much as possible the seasons that are high rainfall or high humidity. And that's one of the practices that you'd have to do, time your planting to avoid some of the problems that you know will occur at specific times. For persons growing their crops at lower elevation, you're not bothered as much as we are with high humidity, so you're freer to plant your crops at the time that are most suitable to you. And now let's check in on the plants that we planted 2 weeks ago in the containers and 4 weeks ago in the beds. The tomatoes, so far at 4 weeks old, what we have done is remove the lower leaves as to ensure better airflow, air circulation in this very small plot. It has worked. The fruits are coming in nicely. The Irish potato were planted a little before we started the demonstration of the growing of vegetables in beds. They're 10 weeks old now. We've had some very high wind, as you can see, still going on, and some of them have been blown down, which is not good in terms of the airflow. But at this point in time, the tubers should have formed, and we're hoping for another 2 weeks or so of growth where the tubers are going to get larger. Now, these pak choys, we started off with 6. We've already harvested half of the crop, 4 weeks, and oh, this one is so big. I think I need to pull it rather than cut it. Right. The okras have started growing at this, oh, and this one is ready. These okra plants are showing evidence of slugs or snail damage. See the chewed leaves? First sign of this? So I'll remove the affected leaves, observe for a few days, and if there's any more damage, I'll set up a few metaldehyde bait stations. Let's take a look at the crops in containers. It's been 2 weeks and they have grown a lot. We just want to point out the beauty of callaloo. In 2 weeks, see how many side shoots have been produced, and at the rate these are going and they're in containers, I would say by next week we would be cutting off the main shoot to eat, and the other side shoots will provide the continued growth of this plant. The escallions have definitely taken off. Nice green plump leaves. The lettuce also, and yes, we did lose one seedling. The thyme is a bit slower than the others, but it's in good condition. The pak choy have more than doubled in size in 2 weeks. They should be ready for harvest in another 3 weeks. The carrots germinated in 10 days after sowing, so they've only just emerged about 4 days now, and therefore they are quite small. The tomato transplants are sturdy, large, with healthy leaves, nice color. So, other than the Irish potato, which needs a few more days to emerge, all crops in containers are doing well. We've come to the end of this very short series on backyard gardening, in which we showed you how to plan your garden, and also we demonstrated how to plant crops in ground beds and in containers. We also provided you with tips on how to keep your crops healthy and growing well. We hope you will use this information to grow more herbs, vegetables, and other crops in your garden. But please bear in mind that environmental conditions are likely to be different in your area from ours, so you'll have to be prepared to adapt some of the information to suit your circumstances. That's it from the Calyx Garden. If you like this series on backyard gardening, please give us a thumbs up, tell your friends about it, and if you have not subscribed already, please subscribe. And don't forget that a lot more information on how to grow crops is provided in our book, Crop Production and Harvesting, which is available on Book Fusion and Amazon. And a wealth of information on managing plant pests and diseases is contained in our book called Crop Protection. So until next time, I'm Thelma from the Calyx Growing Things Garden saying, see you soon.